The small seventh-floor apartment where I used to sit and watch the car lights glide past Franklin Avenue each night now felt cold, like an empty box. I still remember the last time I touched that doorknob. My palm was soaked with sweat, not from the heat, but because I knew I was about to have nowhere left to go. 3 months ago, I had everything. A steady job at Vision and Edge Advertising, a warm little apartment, an old but dependable Mazda, and the naive belief that if I worked hard enough, there would always be a way out. But no one warns you about a storm until it hits. The advertising market collapsed. The CEO walked into the Friday morning meeting, holding a list. When he called my name, his voice didn't shake, but my whole body went numb. Just one line. "Thank you for your 6 years of service. We hope you find your next path soon." 6 years exchanged for a handshake and a severance check worth 2 weeks' pay. I kept calm, at least at the time. I had 3 months' worth of savings, a thick portfolio, a 3-page list of past clients. I believed I'd land a job before the money ran out, but each day passed like wandering a desert, waiting for rain that never came. Hundreds of emails, no replies. A rare interview never went beyond the first round. 4 weeks, 8, then 12. Rent hit the red zone. I had no choice. One gray afternoon, I called my father. My hand trembled dialing the number. I tried to believe he'd listen. "Dad, I need a bit of help, just for now. I was laid off, and I'm job hunting, but things are tight this month." He paused for a few seconds, then spoke in that even tone he used with employees. "You should learn to live within your means, Samantha. Don't rely on your elders. When I was your age, I worked 3 jobs. No one supported me." Before I could say another word, just a long beep. He hung up. Next, I called my mother. She always seemed gentler. Or so I used to think. "Oh, sweetie, I'm really worried about you, but we just remodeled the kitchen and your dad's insurance went up. Hey, why don't you brew coffee at home instead of buying Starbucks all the time?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. I hadn't bought coffee in ages. I was surviving on cold sandwiches and tap water. Then I called Tyler, my younger brother. I'd once given him $1,500 when he lost his job at the tech firm, even helped him move into a new apartment. I didn't hesitate for a second. "You know what? Maybe if you didn't blow your money on designer stuff and a fancy apartment, you wouldn't be in this mess. Some of us have kids to feed, you know." I gave a bitter laugh. That 600-square-foot rental and clothes from outlet stores, apparently that was luxury now. In the end, I asked if I could come over for dinner. I needed to speak face to face. I still held on to the hope that seeing my eyes, my exhaustion after so many sleepless nights, would soften them. Dinner was just like always, Mom's signature lasagna, but this time the smell of cheese couldn't mask the chill in their voices. "See?" Tyler's wife Brittany said after I explained how my industry was shrinking. "This is what happens with your Instagram generation. Spend and expect handouts." "We went through hard times too, you know?" Mom chimed in, adjusting her sparkly bracelet. Dad kept checking his watch, like he couldn't wait for the whole thing to end. "Maybe you should find a stable man," Mom added sweetly, like syrup gone sour. "You're not that young anymore." But the deepest cut came from Tyler. "We have a real family to worry about, Samantha. You only have yourself." I sat still. My ears buzzed. The room shrank. No clinking silverware, no ceiling light. Only the sharp sting of a heart breaking all over again. That night, I drove empty streets. My hands shook. I had to pull over twice just to make it back. The next morning, a text lit up my phone. "Don't call again until you figure your life out. We're tired of carrying you." I stared at the screen. I used to believe family was where you returned when the world got too harsh. But when I needed them most, they slammed the door shut. That was the moment I understood. Either I get up alone, or I stay at the bottom forever. The eviction notice taped to the door of Unit 713 had bold red letters. Notice to vacate. I stared at it for nearly a minute before I had the courage to pull it down. 3 days. They gave me 3 days to leave what once felt like a safe place after work. That night, I sat curled up on the floor. Outside lights spilled across the empty boxes. The fridge held half a bottle of water, moldy bread, and a few melting ice cubes. Everything of value had been sold online: TV, tablet, oak dining set. I even listed the silverware set my aunt gave me for graduation. Nothing left but a few outfits, an old laptop, and photos from college. I stuffed everything I had into the back of my 2008 Ford Focus. The back seat was packed with bags, blankets, worn-out sneakers, and a few thick marketing books I never found time to read. I parked behind a 24-hour grocery store near the Aurora gas station, covered the windows with jackets, and curled up, heart racing at every sound. At dawn, I parked in Planet Fitness. That $10 a month membership was the one thing I held on to. Not for workouts, but for a place to shower. I changed in the stall, careful not to let my shoes touch the floor, tied my hair neatly, and walked out as if leaving a cozy apartment. Then I drove to the city library. Free Wi-Fi, wall outlets. I picked a corner on the second floor near the window and opened my laptop. Applied to 10 jobs, 20, 30, each email rewritten, every cover letter started fresh. By noon, I ate a granola bar bought with my last spare change and drank water from the refill station. That night, I returned to my car, wrapped myself in blankets, and slept behind the wheel. On the 8th day, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Samantha? Is that really you?" I turned. A tall, lanky man in a beanie held a few design books. His eyes squinted, then lit up. "It's Jonah. We used to work together at Lumino Ads." Jonah, from the design team. He'd left the company about a year before me. I stood up fast, heart pounding, not from shame, but surprise. "Hey. I didn't expect to see anyone I know here." Jonah didn't ask questions. He looked straight at me and said, "I just started a small agency. It's just 2 of us now. If you're looking for part-time work, I can't pay much, but it's something to get going again." That offer felt like a lifeline thrown into a storm. I didn't ask about pay. I didn't negotiate. I simply said, "When can I start?" 3 days later, I officially joined NovaSpark Creative, a tiny office that shared a floor with a print shop and yoga studio. My desk was old wood with no drawers, but the outlet worked and the swivel chair creaked in a comforting rhythm. I stayed late, doing everything from writing copy and running Facebook ads to cleaning up client templates. Even so, that small income wasn't enough to get me out of the car. I needed another source. One night, while waiting at a red light on the corner of Glendale and 7th Avenue, I saw a hiring sign outside a bar called The Hollow Oak. I turned in like something pulled me by the hand. "I've never bartended," I told the manager, a woman in her 50s named Marla, with thick eyeliner and a voice like she smoked 3 cigarettes at once. She smirked. "As long as you don't spill drinks on the customers, I'll teach you. Shifts from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Can you handle that?" I nodded. So by day, I worked marketing. By night, I washed glasses, mixed cocktails, wiped down tables, and learned to remember drink orders with just a glance. I wouldn't get back to the car until 3 in the morning, clothes smelling like cigarettes and gin. I was working nearly 70 hours a week. Every shift change meant a frantic outfit swap in the bathroom, a quick ponytail, and a swipe of cheap lipstick to hide the circles under my eyes. Some nights, it poured as I left the bar, and I had to sit in the car soaking wet, waiting for my hair to dry before sleeping for a few hours and moving again. One day, I was so exhausted I passed out at my desk in Jonah's office, tears falling, for reasons I couldn't name. Just an ache in my wrists, burning shoulders, and a brain fog thick with numbers that didn't add up to even one proper meal. But I kept pushing. Gradually, Jonah increased my hours. With new projects, I was finally leading instead of assisting. The pay went up. I bought a folding mattress to ease my back in the car's backseat. After 2 months, I managed to rent a tiny, rundown studio in South Phoenix, where neighbors blasted music all night, but at least the locks were solid. The night I moved in, I laid out the mattress on the bare cement floor, hugged a worn pillow, and fell asleep under the yellow glow of a bare bulb. No bed, no curtains, but real walls, a real roof, and no more 18-wheelers roaring past my car window at 2 a.m. I knew it wasn't everything, but at least I'd stepped out of the dark. I didn't need to hide in the library anymore. I didn't need to lie about working remotely during online interviews from public restrooms. As long as there was a sliver of light, I'd keep walking forward. Late that afternoon, while wiping down the counter at the Hollow Oak, a brown-haired girl walked in with a backpack and a thick law textbook. She ordered a glass of water, sat in the far corner, her eyes tired but somehow resilient. About an hour later, she approached as I gathered glasses. "Do you know anyone looking for a roommate? My rent just went up, and the walls in my place are paper thin. I'm in law school, work weekends, no smoking, no noise." I glanced at the note in my apron pocket. My landlord had just informed me about upcoming plumbing repairs. "My rent might go up too." I hesitated, then asked, "Would you consider sharing a small studio in North Peoria? Shared bathroom, but solid brick walls." She smiled and reached out her hand. "I'm Rachel, Glendale Law School." We sealed the deal with a handshake right there at the bar. The next week, Rachel moved in. 2 mattresses, a study desk, and a mini fan were all she owned. Despite her full class schedule, Rachel always left a little food on the table whenever she cooked. Some nights we lay on the floor listening to our neighbors argue, eating instant noodles while she studied case law and I wrote ad copy. I started feeling every step I was building more clearly. After bar shifts, instead of crashing, I opened my laptop and joined an online course in data analytics. For 3 straight months, I had no real day off. I learned to read user behavior metrics, plan long-term campaigns, and automate them using new software. When Jonah found out I could run retargeting ads across platforms without outsourcing, he looked at me like I was gold in a gravel pit. Things began changing at NovaSpark. I was assigned larger accounts, got to speak with clients directly instead of through intermediaries. One Friday afternoon, Jonah leaned in and whispered, "Starting next week, you'll be the account lead for the Mercy Hope fundraising campaign. It's a big one." I froze. Mercy Hope was a nonprofit supporting survivors of domestic violence. Their previous campaigns had made national headlines. I hugged Jonah, barely holding back tears. I threw myself into the work like it was my last lifeline. For nearly a month, I ate, slept, and breathed content plans, media calendars, budgets, and posting schedules. I didn't use big money to hire influencers. Instead, I invited women Mercy Hope had helped to share their real stories in short videos, touching hearts instead of chasing algorithms. The results hit like a tidal wave. The fundraising page saw over a 280% increase in traffic within 2 weeks. Donations tripled the projected goal. Mercy Hope called Jonah mid-meeting and requested to meet the person behind the campaign. When the Arizona Regional Media Conference came, I never expected NovaSpark to submit the campaign for the Best Cause-Driven Marketing category. Even when they called my name, I thought they'd made a mistake. I walked onto the stage, gripping my speech. The room went silent. I looked out, no family in the audience, but Jonah stood in row 3, clapping. Rachel was filming on her phone, her eyes a little wet. I took a deep breath. This campaign isn't about branding or profits. It's about listening, empowering, and helping someone believe they're worthy of life. I was just the messenger. The spotlight was bright in my eyes, but I didn't shield them. I'd lived in the dark too long to fear the light. After the ceremony, someone approached. A silver-haired man, Anthony, communications director at Southwest Union Bank. "You have a rare authenticity in your work. If possible, I'd love to hear more about how you pulled off such an effective campaign on a lean budget. I hadn't noticed, but Rachel whispered behind me, Samantha, people are starting to see you. I didn't answer. I just smiled, because no one could see the nights I'd slept sitting in a car, mornings wiping damp hair in a gym bathroom, or the hunger I hid while handing out resumes in a borrowed blouse. That win wasn't proof I had conquered everything. It was proof I had survived, one step at a time, even when no one reached out to catch me. And now, I walk forward with my head held high. The post-ceremony party took place in a small ballroom at the Phoenix Grand Hotel. Warm lighting reflected off champagne glasses, and laughter blended with polite compliments and hidden envy. I stood by the buffet table, holding a glass of sparkling water, trying to look confident in a navy blue blazer dress I'd rented from a second-hand shop. A warm, steady voice beside me said, "Admired how you ended your speech. Not cliché, not boastful, just real." I turned. A man in a white shirt, loosened tie, dark brown hair tousled like he'd run his hands through it before walking in. His smile was unhurried. Nathan Ellis, marketing director at Union Vista Bank. I work out of East Tempe. Samantha. Novispach. West Peoria. He raised his glass in a toast. We talked for about 10 minutes, then 30, then nearly 2 hours, long after most of the guests had left. There was no flirting, no cheesy jokes. Nathan asked a lot about the campaign, how I optimized the budget, about the target audience, user behavior. But not to quiz me. It felt like he genuinely cared about why I had chosen that approach. I avoided personal topics, like I always did, but when he mentioned his mom walked out when he was 9, my throat tightened. My family's kind of complicated, I blurted out, but I'm learning how to step away from all that. Nathan didn't press. He just nodded, his calm eyes saying, I get it. From that night on, we stayed in touch. No rushing, no labels. Every conversation brought us a little closer without needing to run. Rachel noticed right away. You have that weird smile every time your phone rings, she said while hanging laundry out on the balcony. I pretended to ignore her, but my cheeks were burning. Nathan started showing up more often, giving me rides after bar shifts, grocery runs on weekends, sitting quietly beside me while I brainstormed new campaign ideas. He didn't interfere or explain. He just showed up. Every shoulder nudge when I was too tense, every frown when I rubbed my temples from headaches. It all felt like someone silently telling me, just do your part, I've got the rest. Jonah gradually let me manage client teams. Rachel suggested splitting all shared expenses. No one tried to help by taking over decisions. They just stood by when I wobbled, never stepping in when I stood firm. One evening, Nathan asked me, have you ever thought about seeing a therapist? I froze. I'm fine. I've made it through. Making it through doesn't always mean you've healed. That sentence stuck like a tiny hook. No sharp pain, but impossible to pull out. I found a therapy clinic near the Arcadia area. The waiting room smelled like peppermint, the walls were soft pink, and the nameplate read, Dr. Corinne L., Trauma Counseling for Adults, from Difficult Families. During the first session, I just sat there. Every question circled back to one thing. Why do I still feel guilty when I've done nothing wrong? By the third week, I talked about that dinner at my parents' house, where they called me a burden. I used to sleep in a car. Now they say I'm selfish for not helping them. Corinne took notes, then said, they only remember you standing. They weren't there when you were on the ground. That's not family. That's a one-way transaction. I sat in silence for a long time. I began to realize I had a habit of enduring. I didn't want to disappoint anyone, even if it tore me apart. I always bit my lip and said, it's okay, while no one asked, are you really okay? Slowly, I learned how to set boundaries. When my mom texted asking, can you call me for a quick chat? I didn't respond right away. Instead, I asked myself if I was reacting out of obligation or out of desire. If it was obligation, I stepped back. Nathan never pushed me to talk about my family, but he always listened when I was ready. Once, I asked him, "Aren't you curious about my past?" He answered, in a voice soft as wind through a window. "I don't need to know who you were before everything fell apart. I care about who you are after rising from the wreckage." My tiny studio started filling with things money couldn't buy. Rachel's laughter echoing from the kitchen while she played comedy podcasts. Nathan's sticky notes on the mirror every morning. My own hand-drawn campaign plans, sparked by a slow-burning fire inside. I hadn't forgotten the cold nights in the car, but now, I wasn't curled up against a steering wheel. I was standing tall in my little kitchen, holding a mug of hot tea, looking out the window at a street lit with the glow of people who were no longer strangers, but something like a real family. On Saturday morning, I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel. In front of me stood a light gray, gable-roofed house with white trim, a low wooden fence, and a lavender bush tangled with grass. The for sale sign had been taken down yesterday. A 3-bedroom home on a quiet corner in North Glendale, where people plant American flags on the porch for holidays and kids still ride bikes on the sidewalk. I stepped out of the car, locked the door with the new key, and just stood there, letting the strangeness of it wash over me. This was my house, not a rental, not a temporary shelter, a space that belonged to me. No one could touch it unless I said so. The purchase wasn't easy. Even with stable income, my financial records were scrutinized. Late payments, past housing loss. At one point, I thought I'd lose it all, especially when the bank requested proof of my bar income, even though I'd quit 2 months ago. But Marcus wrote a reference letter, and Rachel helped organize my documents. On closing day, I wore a plain white shirt, no makeup, hair tied back, no need for anything fancy. The ink on that contract was celebration enough. "No co-owner, no family loan, no guarantor?" the notary asked while reviewing the file. "Or just me, on my own?" The answer came out without hesitation. My hand trembled, not out of fear, but emotion. On moving day, Rachel brought over a hot pizza. Nathan carried in the gray sofa I'd bought used from a clearance furniture store. Jonah came with 2 Nova Spark Junior staff, one removing the truck door, the other hauling in bookshelves. No one asked if I needed help. They just acted, as if silently acknowledging, "You've carried it alone long enough. Let us lift some of it now." We ate sitting on the bare floor, surrounded by boxes still sealed with packing tape. Plastic cups, napkins, cheap soda. I looked around. No fancy furniture, but sunlight slanted through the kitchen window in a warm rectangle on the floor. In that moment, even the deepest wounds seemed to soften. I didn't hire an interior designer. Every corner of the house was painted by my own hand. Wallpaper put up after hours of browsing thrift groups for deals. Curtains chosen from garage sales. The bedroom was muted olive, with a pinboard full of quotes from therapy sessions. The office was cream white, with a long desk pushed against the window that faced the back trees. The living room was the only place I broke my usual rule. I hung a photo of me, Rachel, Marcus, and Nathan from the company party in a mahogany frame Jonah gave me. I didn't call it a home like most people would. I called it my place. Because this house marked something I'd never dared to believe before, that I was no longer under anyone's control, and I didn't need approval from those who had never truly stood by me. Every morning, I brewed coffee with an old but reliable machine, placed the mug on the kitchen counter, and sat on the front porch to watch sparrows peck at seeds. The feeling of bare feet on a floor that was mine, no strangers' footsteps in the hallway, no neighbors leaking faucet through the walls, no anxiety about being evicted on someone else's whim, was peaceful to the point of tears. Nathan often stopped by on weekends, carrying vegetables from the farmer's market. One day he helped me install a bookshelf. Another day he replaced a backyard light. No talk of distant futures, no elaborate plans. Every gesture was small but unmistakable, being there when needed. Rachel still lived in the area but had moved to an apartment closer to campus. She left me her plumbing toolkit with a note. If it's urgent, call me. If it's not urgent, call me anyway. One afternoon, while tidying up the living room, I opened an old box buried deep in the closet. Inside was a letter my dad had sent me during college. A cold, short note telling me I should choose a more practical career than marketing. Beneath it was a copy of a tuition bill I'd scraped together on my own. I sat still for a moment, then dropped it all into a paper bag and took it to the trash bin behind the house. No need to hold on. No need to prove anything. I no longer lived to convince anyone I was worthy. I just lived in a way that I wouldn't have to turn my back on myself. And this house, from the tiles to the roof, was proof of that. I had moved forward with my head held high, without asking permission. On Sunday morning, I sat reading on the backyard porch, cradling a warm cup of coffee while the scent of freshly cut lavender drifted in the breeze. The only sound around was a woodpecker tapping on a distant oak. That was always my time. No phone, no appointments, no interruption. Then the doorbell rang. Once, then twice, followed by frantic knocks, like the house was on fire. I frowned, set my book down, and walked to the front door. My chest tightened as I peeked through the peephole. Standing outside was my entire biological family. My parents, my brother Tyler, his wife Brittany, and 2 kids I couldn't even name. They were holding suitcases, cloth bags, plastic bins with lids. They stood like they were about to check into a holiday rental. "Surprise?" my mother Sharon called out, arms open as if 3 years of silence hadn't happened. "You're not going to let your family stand in the sun, are you?" My throat closed up. I opened the door, not because of the greeting, but because I needed to understand what was happening. "What's going on?" I asked, eyes darting to their bags. My father, Gerald, walked in without waiting. He strolled through the living room, peeked into the kitchen, nodded. "Yeah, quiet place, solid structure. How much did you pay for this?" Tyler followed behind, placing a suitcase near the wall. Brittany was snapping pictures, narrating like she was live streaming. "Our new home. Small place, but definitely has potential once we redecorate." I stood frozen in the doorway, unsure whether this was a joke or a badly written scene in real life. The kids bolted upstairs, their footsteps pounding across the floor. "Don't run up there," I called out, but no one listened. "That'll be the kids' room," Brittany said casually. "The one at the end of the hall. Plenty of light, decent size." "And that second room," my father cut in, dropping his bag onto the couch with a sigh, like he'd just ended a business trip. "Sharon and I can use that for now." My mom settled into the opposite chair, pulling out her phone and smiling at me. "You still haven't changed the sofa pillows. That same pale purple?" I hadn't said a single word. Tyler stepped out of the kitchen holding a cold water bottle from the fridge I'd just bought. "The kitchen needs a bit of updating, but not bad. Do you have Wi-Fi?" "I've got a Zoom meeting tonight." I took a deep breath. "Why, are you all here?" "Oh, you didn't hear?" Sharon blinked innocently. "Tyler's apartment got reclaimed. The landlord raised the rent. Gerald and I sold our house for investment, but the market, well, you know how it is. It's tough out there." My dad didn't wait for her to finish. "We're not here to be a burden. Just temporary. 6 months, maybe 8, tops. Your downstairs office? Perfect for converting into a bedroom." I didn't move, trying to swallow the rising tightness in my chest. "This is my house. No one asked permission. No one called." "Samantha, don't make this dramatic," Sharon said, her voice sugary. "We're family. You've got more space than you need, and we've got nowhere. You live alone. Why do you need so much?" Tyler jumped in, this time looking me straight in the eye, voice flat like a rehearsed line. "You don't have a husband or kids. You've got everything. Career, a house. I just need a shot. Our family just needs a roof. Didn't you once say helping each other is the most basic thing?" I remembered that line. I'd said it almost 10 years ago, when I paid for Tyler's college semester without asking for anything back. A crash upstairs. One of the kids had broken the picture frame I'd hung in the hallway. I clenched the hem of my shirt, biting back what I really wanted to say. Brittany strolled past, still recording on her phone. The internet's going to love this. From crisis to hope, rebuilding life with family under one roof. Absolutely inspiring. The house I had so carefully painted, where every lamp was placed with care, now echoed with chaotic footsteps and overlapping voices. And the only thought in my head was, they think this is theirs. No apologies, no remorse for what they'd said or done. Just laughter, children stomping on my carpet, cupboard doors slamming like they owned every tile in this place. I turned into the kitchen, picked up my phone and typed quickly, "Nathan, if you're free, I need a witness." The next afternoon, the sky held no sun nor rain, just drifting gray clouds, like a warning of a storm not yet arrived. I cleared the dining table, wiped each glass clean, and arranged 6 chairs in a semicircle, facing the chair I usually sat in to work at night. The living room looked like a stage, and today, I needed them to sit and hear what they had never wanted to. My father entered first, carrying a cup of coffee I hadn't offered. He pulled out a chair without asking if he could sit. My mother followed close behind, her coat still smelling of fresh fabric softener, her eyes scanning the room like she was checking for anything left to rearrange. Tyler was texting as he walked in. Brittany was outside with the 2 kids in the yard. I invited them to sit, but not politely. Everyone took their place. I remained standing. I placed my phone on the table and hit record. Not to threaten, but to ensure no one could deny what was about to be said. Before we talk about staying here, I want to say one thing. Just once. My mother adjusted her scarf. My father sipped his coffee. Tyler glanced at me with a strange look, as if he'd never met the woman standing in front of him. 3 years ago, when I lost my job due to company downsizing, I called every single one of you. No one helped. No one asked where I was living, what I was eating, or where I was sleeping. I opened my phone and read the messages aloud. "You should learn how to live like an adult." From Tyler. "No one's going to support you, Samantha." From Dad. "Cut Starbucks, stop buying designer clothes, and figure it out." Mom texted, when I had exactly $11 left in my account. I looked them all in the eye, without flinching. While I slept in my car, shaved using bottled water in a public restroom, you were having dinner in a warm house, celebrating Tyler's birthday at an Italian restaurant, posting happy family pictures. Not once in those 3 years did anyone call. Not once did anyone ask. My father set his cup on the table. "That's in the past. We're in a tough spot now. You can't keep punishing family for old wounds." I nodded slowly. "Then let's define it. What does family mean? Is it only calling each other when someone needs a bed, but not when someone needs support? Is it showing up only when I have something worth taking?" No one answered. This is my home. Every brick, every outlet, every dollar of mortgage came from my work. From nights bartending until dawn, from early mornings writing media plans. Not a single person in this room helped me earn a dime of it. My mother teared up, as usual. "But we're blood, Samantha. That's not something you can just toss aside." I turned away for a moment, then looked back. Family is who stays when I have nothing, not who shows up when I've got something to divide. As the silence thickened, I opened the side door and let in 3 people waiting outside the car. Nathan, Marcus, and Rachel. They entered without fanfare or performance. Nathan stood behind me with a gentle hand on my shoulder. Marcus sat at the table. Rachel leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. These people took me in when I had nothing but 3 old bags and a library card. They never asked what I'd give back, never hinted I owed them anything. They're not blood, but they have what you never did: trust, presence, and unconditional kindness. Tyler clenched his fists. "You're choosing strangers over your real family?" I half smiled. "Family isn't defined by genetics, it's defined by action. They are my family." I went to a drawer and pulled out an envelope. This is the address of a local housing support center, plus the contact info of a financial advisor I arranged. They can help you find temporary shelter and guide you through assistance. But you're not staying here. Brittany walked in from the yard just then. Her eyes widened at the scene. Before anyone could protest, I continued, voice calm. I won't shrink back into the person I used to be, guilted by blood ties. I live here, not to be displaced, but to continue the life I rebuilt from scratch. My mother cried. My father stood and called me selfish, ungrateful, heartless. Tyler stayed quiet, but his eyes were bloodshot. I stood firm. This house is where I walk tall, not where I bow to make space. If they can't understand that, I can't help them anymore. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I simply told the truth. As it is. They stepped out of my life once. Today, they don't get to step back in and treat me like a resource instead of a person. The discussion ended when I pointed to the door and said, firmly, "You have 15 minutes to pack up. The moving truck is outside. I've prepared water and sandwiches for the kids, but this home has no room for those who only come when I have something to offer." No one responded. They left in silence, just like they had once abandoned me. They departed like a storm fading after wrecking everything in its path. My father slammed the car door, face flushed. "No goodbye." My mother shouted in the yard that I would die alone from being so cold. Tyler didn't look back. Brittany was still glued to her phone, likely typing the final caption for her failed moving day photo series. They left 3 suitcases on the porch, as if hoping I'd change my mind. I dragged them down the steps and set them by the recycling bins. When I came back inside, Rachel was clearing the untouched glasses, while Marcus and Nathan remained at the table, willing to stay as long as I needed. No one said, "You did the right thing," or "Don't be sad." Just a silence, safe enough for me to finally exhale. That night, social media filled with bitter posts. Tyler uploaded a blurry photo with the caption, "Sometimes blood hurts more than strangers. Disappointed doesn't even cover it." Below it was my mother's comment. "Only asked for a temporary roof but received nothing but coldness. My heart aches." They didn't mention my name, but everyone knew who they meant. Relatives began messaging me, some even sending scolding texts. "They're still your family, after all." I didn't reply. Then came a message from Aunt Karen, my mom's younger sister. We weren't close, but the voice on that call made me pause everything. They told it like they were abandoned on the street, but I remember every call you left, every email Tyler deleted, even how you paid his tuition without telling anyone. I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner. I didn't expect anyone to turn their back on them to defend me. I just needed someone to say, "I remember, I see you." That alone would have been enough. 3 days later, Marcus called me into his office. Behind him, a development roadmap for NovaSpark hung on the wall. "Samantha, you're no longer just an employee. You've brought in 60% of this year's major contracts and contributed to nearly all our core campaigns. I can't keep calling you a project manager." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a partnership offer, along with a salary that was 1.5 times higher. "You don't just work here. You're part of this company's heartbeat." I sat there, quietly, my hand over my mouth. Not because of the money, but because I was finally being recognized. Without connections, without lowering myself. That afternoon, when I told Rachel the news, she screamed so loud she knocked over her smoothie. Nathan hugged me from behind and whispered, "You walked through hell and still kept your heart. Now it's time to live like a winner." Rachel, with mock seriousness, said, "A promotion calls for a celebration gift. That gift is a getaway in Santa Barbara. 3 people, 1 beachfront villa. No laptops, no reports, no family drama." We booked the tickets for 3 weeks later. For the first time, I was going on vacation without worrying about money or dreaded phone calls. I started adjusting my boundaries. Messages from uninformed relatives were silenced. the ones who truly wanted to understand. I invited them out for coffee and had an honest conversation. One time only. My mother called again. 3 times. I didn't pick up. Not out of anger, but because I no longer felt obligated to heal those who refused to change. I also updated my medical records. Under emergency contact, I crossed out Sharon and Gerald and added 3 new names. Nathan Ellis, the man willing to drive through the night just so I wouldn't have to eat dinner alone. Marcus Hall, the one who didn't just give me a chance but believed in me before I could believe in myself. Rachel Nguyen, the friend with no shared blood who always knew how to make me feel like I belonged. 3 people who don't carry the Richardson name, yet each one a pillar I leaned on when no one in my blood family stood beside me. When I submitted the update, the nurse looked at the list and asked, 3 people? That's rare. I smiled, because I have more than one person I trust. It's my family. On the kitchen counter, I placed a note. The ones who deserve to stay in your life are the ones who never needed forgiveness just to show up. The house still smelled of lavender, the sofa still a soft shade of purple, but the space felt wider now. Not because there was more room, but because no one was occupying space that didn't belong to them anymore. No one came knocking under the label of family expecting entitlement. Only those who once held my hand as I walked through the darkest valleys, who helped pack every little box in my old apartment, who sat by me when everything felt like it was falling apart. They don't share my blood, but they showed up, on time, without asking for anything. That's real family. Samantha's story is a powerful reminder that family isn't always defined by blood. It's built through love, presence, and genuine kindness. In the real world, there are many people like her, once hurt by their own kin, yet they eventually find a chosen family in those who stood by them during their hardest moments. Life doesn't require us to hold on to relationships that break us. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is draw the line and choose love where it's truly deserved. What do you think about Samantha's decision? Would you have done the same in her situation? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories and meaningful life lessons.